Hello YouTube world, this is John with Gun Safety Training 101. Gun Safety Training 101 on YouTube and gunsafetytraining101.com. Today we're going to talk about a simple thing, but a very important thing to learn, to know, and that is decocking a revolver. This is a new model single-6, single action only Ruger revolver. In this condition, with the hammer cocked, this gun is of course been safety checked. With the hammer cocked, this gun is in its most dangerous condition. If you need to decock the gun with a live round under the hammer, there is a very specific way to do it, and we're going to talk about that. The first thing you need to do is control the hammer. Got it? Control the hammer. Then you need to reach in and pull the trigger and let the hammer go forward slightly, get your finger off the trigger and let the hammer go back. Now, anytime you are cocking a revolver with a hammer, you never put your finger in the trigger guard. So we're going to control the hammer and let it go back. I'm going to do this from this side so you can maybe see better. Do it left-handed. Notice the trigger moving back into the trigger guard. I've got the hammer, pull the trigger, get my finger off the trigger and let the hammer come forward. The gun will not fire even if you slip off like that because of the safety mechanism. This particular gun has what's called a drop safety, a transfer bar. Forgive me. So if you look inside here, you'll see that piece of metal right there. See the notches in the hammer? When the trigger is pulled and the hammer falls, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a tiny little dot on the other side of the transfer bar. Let's see if we can get some light on that. Nah, it's not going to show. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. If you can see it, but anyways, that is the firing pin. Excuse me. Now the transfer bar literally transfers the energy from the hammer to the firing pin. The gun goes bang. Look what happens when I keep my finger on the trigger and release the hammer. The transfer bar stays put. The hammer would hit the transfer bar would hit the firing pin, the gun would go bang. Now watch what happens when I take my finger off the trigger. Notice the transfer bar dropping down out of the way. It creates a space between the hammer and the firing pin that's not consumed by the transfer bar because the transfer bar has dropped down into the frame of the gun and created the safe. This is also a drop safety gun. This gun here, this Colt, has a firing pin on the hammer. The decocking procedure is exactly the same. You control the hammer, pull your trigger, get your finger off the trigger, and the gun is decocked safely. Now, with this gun, you can't see a transfer bar. It doesn't have one. The safety mechanism on this actually comes up to intercept the hammer and create a space between the live round and the tip of the firing pin. So, decocking these things is really critical to do and do safely if you have live rounds in the chambers, especially live rounds underneath the hammer, which it would have if you've got a full chamber and you are shooting the gun. So a lot of times what I will do is I will take people to the mound. Well, first of all, call ceasefire and get somebody to the mound so that they can try to decock this thing just a couple feet from the mound. If I have to take a gun from somebody in this condition, I will. I don't like to. Handing over a revolver with the hammer cocked can be dangerous, so if you have to do that, do it super carefully. Make sure the muzzle is pointed in a safe direction. Take the gun, decock it, but I would rather have my students go down to the mound, decock the revolver themselves, and that way we don't have to hand over a cocked, locked, and loaded firearm to somebody else. So those are the two different mechanisms you'll see. This one with the firing pin, the safety comes up to intercept the hammer. This gun with no firing pin on the hammer, the safety, aka transfer bar, goes down to create a gap between the hammer and the firing pin. So there you have it, John. GunSafetyTraining101.com and GunSafetyTraining101 on YouTube. Check them out, like them, love them, share them, comment. If you see something here I've done wrong, or you think I've done it wrong, or I've described something incorrectly, please feel free to comment, and I will probably comment back. Until then, be safe.